Hey, what's up everybody? This is the Review Man, and on this I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to do top 10 Married with Children episodes. And each one of them is going to be about a minute long, so I'm not going to make the video too long. And I hope you enjoy Married with Children. It's one of my favorite shows. Married with Children is about Al Bundy, who's a shoe salesman living in Chicago who hates his life, hates his kids. His wife is a stay-at-home homemaker who don't do nothing. His son is a little horn dog, goes after all the women, who later becomes a bunch of other jobs like working at the DMV, become a Hollywood agent and stuff like that. And the daughter, her name is Kelly. And Kelly, she's a tramp. Plain and simple, she's a tramp who later becomes a big TV personality. And then they got the next door neighbor, Marcy. She was a banker now and a women's activist. And her first husband, Steve, who was a banker, then he ran off to some wild caveman Tarzan crap. And then she got this pretty boy named Jefferson. Jefferson is like Peg, doesn't do a thing. So I hope you guys enjoy my Married with Children top 10 episodes. Here's number 10. Okay guys, this first episode in my top 10 list is number 10. A Bundy Thanksgiving. This one is about Peg, Jefferson, and Bud going after Kelly's turkey Hank to cook for Thanksgiving because they couldn't find one. And she's trying like all this other stuff about Kelly's trying to get all this, trying to save Hank, and he's like, oh, we'll just want to cook them and all this other junk. And Kelly's like, no, you can't cook my turkey, Hank. Run, Hank, run. And this woman, she ain't got no sense. Kelly ain't got no sense in her head, and she just takes him up to the bathroom. And she throws him out the window because she thinks turkeys can fly. Turkeys can't fly, Kelly. And so while all this is going on, Al's favorite sweet potato pie place, whenever he was a kid, closes because the woman that made the sweet potato pie dies. And so he goes to the funeral, and there's like all these people, Charles Barkley, James Brown, all these other people. And he tries to save the last piece of pie. And so him and Griff, the guy he works at the shoe store with, they go to the shoe store. They go to the place and they say, well, we gotta get that pie. And they do like this football play because Al used to play football. He scored 4 touchdowns in one game. And so they get the pie, they take it back, and along with the turkey they have the last piece of sweet potato pie. So that was a Bundy Thanksgiving. One pretty good episodes. So join me with number 9. Hey, number 9 is Kelly Knows Something. Al's TV broke down, and he finds out that there's a sports show, and who better to know sports than the man who scored 4 touchdowns in a single game. That was my Al impression. So he goes on this TV show, and he auditions, and he makes it, but they reject him for having no personality. And so what he does is he gets Kelly to train. He trains Kelly, but Kelly's got one flaw. Whenever something goes in her mind, something else goes out. And so she's almost close to the $100,000, but whenever her mind gets some information in it, some more information has to go out to make space for that mind. I know she got a small brain about that big. So anyway, she's almost on the last question, which was what high school football player scored 4 touchdowns in a single game? And Kelly almost had it, and Bud, Peg, and Al are all sitting in the stand saying, Peg, Al, beep. And he said, and then the guy said, nobody, time's up. Audience, Al Bundy. And so they got a consolation prize, which was the TV, but Al really wanted that money. And join me for number 8. Okay, number 8, the movie show. It's Kelly's birthday, but everybody's making sure that Kelly has plans, and Al's trying to find a way for them that they celebrate Kelly's birthday, but Kelly's like, oh, that's gonna backfire, and so they decide to go to the movies, and then they see Kelly's old boyfriend, and Al goes into this other movie, and Bud's trying to get with all these other women in the theater. That backfires too. It never works for Bud. And so, yeah, Kelly sees her old boyfriend and kissing on another woman, and she goes up to the Al and says, "Daddy, beat her up." "Okay, pumpkin." Goes back there and beats him up, and then that's where that episode ends. Join me for number 7. Okay, number 7 is called the Chicago Wine Party. And the Chicago Wine Party, Al's kind of fed up about taxes, a 2-cent beer tax. And so he goes down to the polling place and he casts his vote for a non-2-cent tax. And then that causes a riot, and then the news person says, "Don't tax." This is what happens when you put a tax on beer. And she was saying all sorts of crazy things. And Al looks at the TV screen at the end and he says, "To everybody in Washington, don't tax beer." Join me for number 6. Number 6 is called Rock of Ages. The Bundys sneak onto a first class part of the airplane, and they party with like all these guest stars like Spencer Davis, Richie Havens, Bobby Grigger, Mark Lindsay, Peter Noon, and John Sebastian, and have a good old time in first class Bundy style. So join me for number 5. Okay, number 5 is called 976 Shoe. And this one is about Al Bundy is asking Steve for a loan for $50,000 so he can finance a shoe hotline, which he can help people for shoes. Yeah, this man's pretty desperate. He likes shoes. And that'll help Steve run a trip to Hawaii. But it turns out the shoe hotline was a bust. Nobody's calling for shoes. Nobody's ever going to call for shoe help. And then he puts out a couple TV spots, which cost him another $50,000. And Marcy takes credit at her bank, which backfires in their face. And at the end of it, she becomes a window teller. And it was a pretty good episode, but it was pretty bad that Al Bundy would go to that length for trying to get some shoes and get some money. And that was 976 Shoe. Join me for number 4. Number 4 is called Tooth or Consequences. Al has a pretty bad toothache, and so he decides to go to the dentist, and the dentist is kind of bitter about divorcing his wife. And so he's taking it out on Al's teeth. But this is the dentist Marcy suggested. I think this episode was just because of Spite Al. And so he gives him some Novocaine, and after he takes his teeth out, after he takes to do the dental work, Peg actually decides to cook a meal, which of course she would, because Peg doesn't really cook. And so yeah, it was a pretty decent episode, trying to see Al dealing with pain, and the dentist is like, "Well, Bundy, I'm going to take some shots and give you some shots, and in about an hour, neither of us are going to feel a thing." Yeah. And so that was Tooth or Consequences. Join me for number 3. Okay, number 3 is called A Taxing Problem. Al is faced with an audit whenever Peg does some creative accounting and claims herself, this is what she claimed, that she can get more money for 23 kids if she claimed 2 of them as dependents and got them $200. And then Al plots to sell Peg's hair, which turns out he goes through this entire episode of him trying to get Peg's hair. And Peg, turns out at the end of the episode, they think they're getting Peg's hair, but it's actually hair off the dog's backside, and the dog's name is Bug, but you don't see that till like the very last second of the episode whenever they walk out. And so that one was a pretty good episode. That one was called A Taxing Problem. Join me for number 2. Okay, number 2 is called Johnny B. Gone, which it's sort of like a burger joint that's closing down, and Peg and Al want to get there so they can be part of the final close. But Bud, he needs help with a race car, and Kelly needs help with something. I forgot what she needed help with. While this is going on, Steve and Marcy are preparing for their boss's dinner, which is fish, which gets thrown on Marcy, and Marcy's got to clean while trying to figure out how to do this fish while Steve is distracting them. And so they're almost there, and they call their friends, and they're like, "Oh, get us this spot, save us this spot, save us that spot." And they're almost there until, like, at the very last second in this episode, the doors closed, and that's pretty much the end of Johnny Rocket, which again was a burger joint, and that was the end of their era. So, and they end every single episode, sit on the couch. And last but not least, my number 1 episode. Okay, my number 1 episode is called Take My Wife Please. It's a Halloween episode where Al wishes he was dead, and he's visited by the Grim Reaper with a very familiar face. Turns out it's Peg's face. And the only way he can escape death is if a family member wishes he was around by midnight. Meanwhile, Kelly, Bud, Jefferson, and Peg are all dressed up as village people singing YMCA. Over and over and over and over, because Marcy only had the 45 record, which is this one song. And so they decide to do a bunch of mean old women who killed their husband just because they looked at him wrong. Yeah, mean women. Part of her women's feminist group. And so Kelly finally wishes that she was but Al was there. But turns out the only reason, and then the Grim Reaper leaves, and Al said, "Will I ever see you again?" And the Grim Reaper was like, "Yeah, the day after you win the lottery." And so, turns out it was all a dream. It was all a gas-induced dream, which there was a gas leak in the house. And the episode ends with the real village people, and Kelly, Bud, Jefferson, and all them dressed up as the village people singing YMCA, and then the Grim Reaper dancing on the stairs. And that's my top 10 episodes of Married with Children. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys on the next list. Peace.